watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into The Sports Source. Happy to have you join us today. We have a lot of stuff to cover. Tennessee football, Tennessee basketball puts a staff together. We'll even talk a little Knoxville area sports, just a bit on the minor league teams here and how much support they get. We'll talk about all that and more. Let's get right into our first segment, though. This first part brought to you by Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. And if you're looking to list your home and move it quickly, call the Cobble team this week. If you're looking to buy a new home, call and ask about homes like this one right here. It's absolutely beautiful in the heart of Farragut, spacious, only minutes from shopping at Turkey Creek, and they have an open house today from 2 to 4. Right there, 12036 Grigsby Chapel Road, open house from 2 to 4. It is beautiful, 3-bedroom house. Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land is the group to call if you want to move your house quickly, if you want your house to be displayed here on the Sports Source, or if you want to buy a home. Get out there to their open house today, 2 to 4. Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. Okay, here's what we have coming up on today's program. First of all, as I mentioned, Tennessee had a scrimmage yesterday, situational scrimmage. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how much you can read into Josh Dobbs, good or bad, after the reports last year that he might not have been the best practice player. What's the bigger worry heading toward 2015? Offense or defense? It's tax week, so we'll talk about that nonsensical, oops, I think I gave away my feelings, that nonsensical amusement tax that UT has to pay the city of Knoxville. Full cost of tuition scholarships, could that be a big, huge boon for Tennessee recruiting? Somebody thinks it could be. Hoop staff, Tennessee puts it together and they splurge on the new staff basketball. We'll talk about it. More Nike uniform fear has come out this week. We'll show you that. Plus, how will history judge Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt? All that with Bob, Mike, Chuck, and Jimmy, who will be joining us in just a few minutes. The other three right here from the beginning. Bob Hodge, of course, freelance contributor to the Knoxville News Sentinel. Mike Strange, regular contributor to the Knoxville News Sentinel, longtime columnist there, and on sports radio, WNML. You do the Sports Page radio show a few times a week. And we got Chuck Cavaleros right there from Southern Golf Central, the magazine, and .com. All right. On Thursday, defensive coordinator John Jancic said that he wasn't pleased with the defense. Interestingly enough, he said, we're young all over the place, but we can't use youth as an excuse. Well, he just did. But anyway, he wasn't happy with the defense, but the defense in yesterday's situational scrimmage did pretty well. Butch Jones wasn't thrilled with his offense, and he had some comments afterwards. I thought our defense came out. I like our mental approach. I did not like our offense's approach. I thought we were stale. I thought we had no mental effort. I thought we had no intensity about ourselves. You take Jalen Hurd out of our offense, you take Alvin Kamara out of your offense, you're a little bit different team. We've been pretty good offensively throughout the course of spring, but today I thought the defense just had much more intensity. They had more leadership, I thought, in this type of environment. I thought that was interesting. Mike, you were there. Thoughts on the scrimmage? From what I understand, a lot of self-inflicted wounds by the offense.
The offense had a lot of drop passes, I think, was the main thing I noticed. And just the defense did appear to have a little more intensity about them for whatever reason.
Here's my question overall, and folks know my feelings by now. This is our 1,000th spring we've covered. It's always hard to gauge a scrimmage. You know, if your run game looks good, is that because your run game is good or because your run defense is bad? You know, you don't know until the fall.
Right.
But there's an interesting twist to this as well with Josh Dobbs. Not necessarily yesterday, but just overall. How much can you really read into Dobbs when all we heard last year was Peterman was this great practice player but didn't do well in games, whereas Dobbs, Daniel Hood told me that when he was on the team, he would have been your third guy, Dobbs would have been, in terms of practice. Yet you put him in a game, light comes on. How much can you read into Josh Dobbs in practice?
How much can you read into a guy wearing a green jersey? And I think that takes away from your offense. You had guys in green jerseys. How many guys in green jerseys are on the defense?
Not as many.
Yesterday, I don't remember.
Yeah. And that's where your intensity comes from. I think when you got players out there that the defense knows that they can hit, that the offense knows can't get hit, I think it changes the flow of your game. You're not playing a natural game. Your defense can tee off on the guys who can get hit, and I think it gives them a little bit of momentum. And what can you read into it? Not much. What can you read into Josh Dobbs? at this point in time, go back to his season last year and read into that more so than what he did in a controlled scrimmage in a green jersey.
And I think last year Josh Dobbs was going to practice pretty much knowing he was the number 3 guy, John. I think now he has taken more ownership of this team, and by all accounts, he has been doing better. So, I mean, I think that's one thing. And one thing I like is the defense was challenged. The coach said, hey, you guys aren't doing enough on Thursday. Well, they come out the next day, and they had a really good scrimmage. So I think you got to like that part of it.
And Mike, go ahead.
Just, you're preaching to the choir here. I agree with you that you don't make a whole lot out of the spring scrimmages.
But I'll tell you what, I think you do make a whole lot out of it. You said a lot of drop passes. Those are the things that you take with you out of a scrimmage like that. If you're dropping passes, you drop passes. If you miss blocks, you're going to miss blocks. So I think those are the things that you take with you out of this.
Alvin Kamara was out with a thigh bruise. Cody Blank is now out for the entire spring with broken ribs. Jalen Hurd and Pig Howard were in limited contact with green jerseys due to their ailments. Hurd coming off the shoulder surgery, Pig Howard with some bruised ribs. Marquez North still in a green jersey after his labrum surgery in the offseason. That gets back to the point. And then you got all the guys missing on the defensive line.
Right.
So at this point now, and we talked about this before spring practice started, you knew you were going to be limited in what you could do with that defensive front because you had so many folks out. Now you're missing your 2 running backs. I mean, how good can an offense look, as Butch Jones kind of alluded to, how good can an offense look when you don't have a scholarship running back? It's kind of hard to run off the goal line when you don't have a scholarship running back out there with you. So at what point, and again, we asked this before, is this a wasted spring in some sense?
I don't think you can call it a wasted spring because you've got so many guys out there who are going to play, who you are developing a little bit of depth, guys that may not be getting the reps if everybody was there. So I don't think you call it a wasted spring. I would go with more of kind of a neutral spring because you don't get a full look of what everything you got. But I mean, I think if you've got 10 guys to go to practice with, you're not wasting your time going to practice with them.
Well, I'm not, okay. Poor word choice on my side of it then. I don't think that the coaches are wasting anything. What I'm saying is, are you getting the maximum out of the spring practice that you could? And I don't think so because you got so many people missing. I don't see how you can look at that and say, yeah, this was a good spring practice when you got a lot of guys out. Are guys going to have more experience? Sure. Maybe the walk-on running backs you had out there wind up in an SEC game. One would hope not. But I
think here's the argument to that because Derek Barnett is not there, because Danny O'Brien is not there. Shy Tuttle is getting a ton of reps, and he worked yesterday with the first #1 team. That wouldn't happen if all those guys were there. And it's football. Every school everywhere has spring practice, has a bunch of guys out with injuries.
Yeah, and it's still, it is what it is. It's spring practice, and I think it's natural for some of these guys. They're pretty much ready for this to be over. I mean, they want to do well, but it reaches a point where there's going to be some lulls, where there's going to be some down days, and you just want to get to whether you're going to have your scrimmage or your orange and white game or whatever you do, and move on from there.
Okay. Well, they still have 2 more weeks to fight through because the spring game isn't until
6 more practices.
Yeah, the spring game isn't for a couple of weeks. When we come back, what is the bigger concern for Tennessee going into fall football? Is it going to be the offense or the defense? We'll take a look at returning starters across the Southeastern Conference, see how Tennessee applies there. Come on back on the Sports Source.
Quality, quick. Trust Fast Frame.